record to this
Let me
computer.
see if I can figure out how to share this thing. All right, let me see if I can
We are
figure this.
live now, or we're recording.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to our April meeting of the Virtual Poultry Club. I'm going to try to share something. I was just feeding my animals before the meeting, so I made this video because you all always show me your chickens.
Oh,
So I thought I'd show you some of mine. So here's a little video I made. I don't know if you can hear this or not. Here are some of my chickens. I've got another chicken yard, and I've got some more chickens in it, but this is my main one. This is my laying flock. It's mostly Rhode Island Reds with a few other kinds of chickens. I got one rooster in here. He's old. He's several years old. Some of these chickens are getting pretty old. I've got some younger chickens in another pen over there. But hi guys, say hi to the kids. I give them a few treats every day, and they're like, "Oh, you want to come see me? Hi, honey. Hi, honey. Hi, everybody. Here's where I feed them. Watch them show. Best boxes are behind me. I just want to show you some of my chickens. All right, so there's a few of my chickens. All right, so don't judge me, but there's my chickens. There's some of them. I got another pen of layers that are younger hens. They're like 2 years and under, and then I've got one pen that's got for some reason I've got well I know why I've got six Rhode Island Red Roosters because last year Tractor Supply I walked in and they had sometimes they have chicks labeled. I got them talked down to 50 cents a chick, so I think I bought like 12 they had left. And of course, half of them they were straight run Rhode Island Reds, and then half of them were roosters. So I separated all the roosters, which I intended to eat, but I haven't eaten them yet. They're like now they're almost a year and a half old. So I doubt if but they're in like a bachelor pen of roosters. But I may, I don't know why I don't eat them, but I just haven't gotten around to. I don't know why I keep them. I kind of like this. They're pretty, but anyway. So and then I've got a cup. I got like four turkeys, and then I've got some ruined ducks, and I've got about five or six bob white quail left. So that's my poultry flocks that I've got. So you got to see some of my chickens. So, all right, let me get back to sharing the PowerPoint. We got a few more people on now. So maybe some other meeting, I'll show you some of my other birds. But last time, and I don't remember who it was, I don't think they're on. Somebody last time started talking about genetics and asking about genetics. You all remember that? Last time we talked about what, poultry careers or something? And somebody brought up genetics. Somehow we got on genetics. And I said, well, next time we're going to talk about avian genetics, bird genetics. And some of you all are signed up for Avian Bowl. I don't think that's the topic this time, but it might help you on some Avian Bowl questions at some point in the future too. But this is kind of, I guess I could go to the actual slide. This is kind of very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not day one stuff. It's not necessarily for your clover buds or some of you little ones may not understand everything we're talking about, but that's okay because the more you hear this stuff, you hear it over and over and over again, starting when you're little, and at some point it's going to click and start making. I've never been one to hesitate sharing complex information with little kids in 4-H because I find that you all still absorb it like sponges. And if you don't know a word or something, ask me, stop me, and say, hey, I don't understand what that means. And you may not understand all of it, but understand what you can. Because again, I've never been afraid of presenting complex information to young children in 4-H because you all understand a lot more than what us adults sometimes I think give you credit for. So, but if you don't understand something, A, don't feel bad, and B, feel free to stop me and ask questions, okay? And if this takes more than one meeting, it takes more than one meeting. But we're going to learn about chicken genetics. So 4-H, everybody knows, is a club for young people. We all know that. We always start with the pledges. So who would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Anybody want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Where's all our eager volunteers.
I'll do it.
Okay, Laura, go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Laura. All right, now the 4-H pledge. You would like to do that.
I can do it.
Okay, go ahead, Ruby.
I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart for greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health for better living, for my club, my community, my country, and my world.
All right, we all know what the H's stand for. Okay, here's some key terms. I knew this was going to be complex. So I'm going to start with some vocabulary. And you'll hear these words throughout this discussion. And I just wanted to define these words. Gene, I'm not talking about the jeans I'm wearing right now. A gene is a little tiny inherited instruction manual, so to speak, that lives inside of every living cell, plant cells, animal cells, bug cells, fish cells. Well, fish are animals too, but every living thing has a genetic code or genetic little blueprint that kind of tells it how it's supposed to act, what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to look like. So that's a gene. A genotype, that's an organism's kind of secret genetic code, like a kind of like a recipe. It's found inside of stuff called DNA, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's a combination of genes. All those genes add up into an animal's genotype. That's what the textbook recipe for that animal or that plant or that whatever living organism it is, jellyfish, whatever it is, that's what it is. So that's the genetic code or the genetic recipe for that animal. A phenotype, spelled as kind of rhymes, similar word, that's what we can see. So when we see a single comb in a chicken as compared to a rose comb, or if we see a blue egg as compared to a white egg, those are things we can see. That's phenotype. So genotype is the genetic stuff that makes up what that animal is and what that animal does. The phenotype is what we can see. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. An allele, that sounds like an alien. An allele is a specific version of a gene that determines a particular trait, such as comb type or egg color. And the different alleles are kind of like different versions of different recipes. Some recipes say a chicken's going to have, black feathers, and some recipes say a chicken's going to have white feathers. That's the allele. Does that make sense? I'm trying to put it in terms that I hope you all can understand. Oh, and Lily wants to be a vet, so this is good for her. All right, here's some more key terms. DNA, I said I'll tell you what that means later. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Doesn't that sound fancy? Deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. That's the microscopic instruction manual inside of every living thing. It acts as a blueprint for building and operating. And there are these little kind of double helix designs. It's like these little twisty things. A chromosome is a tiny thread-like structure made of DNA. And it's found in the nucleus or in the center part of every cell of every organism on this planet that I'm aware of. So there's some more key terms. The next two key terms are related, but we're changing gears a little bit. The term heterozygous means that an animal has two different versions or two different alleles of a specific gene, because they have one from each parent, one from the rooster, one from the hen. And they're different. So like one might be a blue egg gene and one might be a white egg gene. That's heterozygous. Homozygous means that they have the same genes, even though they come from both parents, one from the rooster, one from the hen, they're the same one. So it would be blue egg from the dad and blue egg from the mom. If the bird has both blue egg genes, that's called homozygous. So homozygous, they have two of the same gene for a particular trait. Heterozygous means they have one of each, one blue, one white, if we're talking about egg color. That makes sense? Have I lost anybody? Have I bored anybody yet? All right. I'm getting a sad face from Tracy and a thumbs up from Ruby, so hopefully Tracy's not too sad. All right. Well, I got a little video, another video. Let's see. Tracy probably left a comment. Oh, that's all right. I don't know who Animal Nerd is, but you're not a nerd if you like animals, so your name is not accurate because only cool people like animals. All right. Let's watch a little video. Let's see if I can get this video to load. Of course, it's not doing it. Let me copy and paste it. No, well, I did something. What did I do? Well,
Click your undo button, Dr. Chris.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
I think you moved the HTTPS into the middle of the. Yeah, and if you hit control, sorry, I'm a Mac user. I was going to say command, but if you hit control and then the link, it ought to open up. But you have stopped sharing.
Yeah, I stopped sharing because I I couldn't see the undo button with my. All right, here's the.
Why use
Oh, of course we got to add
Viagra when
you
can use
we don't want
paper
that.
rub?
Be quiet.
Pay attention.
Let's see. Oh, I mute him. Skip ad. All right, here's a video on chickens. No, thank you. All right, let's see. Now let me share this. Share. Where'd that video go? All right, here we go. Share. Can you all see these chickens now? Okay. Now I'm going to unmute it.
In a series, I would like to present on genetics. Specifically, chicken genetics, however, all of the terms are used in the same way across all species and areas of genetics. Over the course of the next 5 videos or more, I would like to give a simple overview of a good handful of common terms used in the chicken genetic world that some might find confusing. Since I don't want to lose you from the start, let me first begin by explaining what I mean by the term genetics. Genetics is a branch of biology that deals with hereditary traits and inheritance. For example, your eye color, which comes from your parents, a dog's coat color, which comes from its parents, or a chicken's leg color, which comes from its parents, all have to do with genetics. When you hear the word gene, most people immediately think of DNA, and this is correct. A gene is a strand of DNA, usually located on a chromosome, that determines your physical characteristics such as hair color, eye color, blood type, etc. For chickens, this would involve the color of their feathers, egg color, eye color, leg color, skin color, and even comb type, comb color, earlobe color, the type of feathers they have, and more. Just like it does in humans and other species, genetics also involves body shape, which in chickens includes things like tail angle, wing placement or carriage, type of comb, length of back, and so much more. As I said before, a gene is a strand of DNA located on a chromosome. We humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, or 46 total. Chickens actually have 39 pairs of chromosomes, which makes 78 total. Each chromosome contains multiple genes, which live on different parts of the chromosome. You will often hear the word locus in genetics, which is just referring to a gene's location on a chromosome. Before we go on, I would like to first note the difference between nature and nurture. Basically, nature is what you inherit, and nurture is the way you are affected by the environment around you. For example, let's say you have a hen with a single comb. She has 5 points on her comb, but by nurture, or really lack of nurture, she loses one of the points on her comb. Her genes did not change. I won't get into the genetics of comb points because it is much more complicated than this, but let's just say, for simplicity's sake, that breeding 2 birds with 5 comb points together will always result in offspring with 5 comb points. Breeding this hen that now has 4 comb points to a rooster with 5 comb points will still result in offspring with 5 comb points. Just because she lost the comb point doesn't mean her genes changed. Her genes stayed the same, but because of the environment around her, she lost the comb point. She always will still continue to produce offspring with 5 comb points, even if she loses all her comb points. The environment around your birds does not change their genetics. They might look different due to an accident or even a different type of feed, but their genetics stay the same regardless. Now that we are all on the same page about genes, the definition of genetics, and nature versus nurture, let's look at our first two terms, dominant and recessive. And in the next video, I will be explaining incomplete dominance and codominance. The first term or type of gene we are going to be learning about are dominant genes. When chickens breed, the male and female each give one copy of each gene for every trait, like feather color, eye color, comb type, etc., to their offspring. You see, every trait has two genes. Now, of course, some traits like crests or dwarfism and varieties like millefleur, porcelain, or patterns like lacing or spangled are a little more complex and involve more genes. But for now, I'll just be focusing on simpler ones that only involve two genes. Sometimes these two genes are the same gene, which is called homozygous. And sometimes they are two different genes, which is called heterozygous. Now, the chicks will get one gene from the hen and one from the rooster. Each of these two genes is competing to become the dominant or winning gene within the chick. The winning gene is the one that is expressed, or in other words, the winning gene is the one that you will see. But it's not a fair fight because some genes are always dominant over others. It's not random. For instance, the black gene is always dominant over the lavender gene. Now, it does not matter whether the black gene belongs to the hen or the rooster, because regardless of where the dominant gene, or in this case the black gene, came from, the black gene will always overrule the lavender gene. Now, some genes are sex-linked, which means that it does matter if the male or female is carrying it, but I'm going to leave that for another video. Now, dominance does not just include the subjects of feathers and their color. There's also dominance in terms of combs or even eye color. For instance, a rose comb is always dominant over a single comb, and red eye color is always dominant over dark eye color. The main idea is that some genes are always dominant over other genes, or in other words, certain genes will always win the battle over expression amongst other genes. And this brings us to our second term, recessive genes. Now, recessive genes are the counterpoint or losing genes to the dominant genes. In our last example, I mentioned that black is the dominant gene, which means that lavender is a recessive gene. A recessive gene will never be fully expressed when a gene dominant to it is present. I mentioned earlier that every trait for the most part has two genes, one from the hen and one from the rooster. In a dominant gene, only one copy of that gene needs to be present for it to express or to be visible. For a recessive gene to be visible, two copies must be present. In other words, if two birds were both lavender in color, meaning they both carry two lavender genes each, and you bred them, they would always produce lavender offspring. Since black is dominant to lavender, if you bred a black bird with two black genes to a lavender bird, you would only get black chicks. These black chicks that you got would be called black splits to lavender. They don't look lavender, they look pure black, but they all carry one recessive lavender gene. In other words, they're heterozygous. Now, if you take those adorable little black chicks that all carry one recessive lavender gene and one dominant black gene, and bred them back to the lavender bird, you would get 50% black split to lavender chicks and 50% lavender chicks. Even though you bred a bird that looks black to a lavender bird, because that black bird carried one black gene and one lavender gene, and of course the lavender bird carried two lavender genes, otherwise it wouldn't be lavender, about 50% of the time, the black chicken that carried the lavender gene would give that lavender gene to its offspring, meaning when paired with the lavender chicken, which can only give lavender, the offspring were lavender. Another example of recessive genes would be that single combs are always recessive to rose combs. So, a chick whose parents both have a single comb would always have a chick with a single comb.
Watch what magnesium does to your bowels.
If you have to wipe more than 4 times,
All right, that's gross. How do I make that go away?
Had the same recessive eye color, let's say they were dark eyes, the chick would automatically have dark eyes because there's no dominant gene among the two parents to overrule the recessive dark-eyed gene. As a breeder, recessive genes make it easier to get the character traits that you want to create in your flock. Yes, if you were trying to introduce a recessive trait into your existing flock that you know is homozygous dominant for the trait you are trying to change, it is going to take 2 generations before you can see that recessive trait in your line.
However, if you already have a recessive trait in your line and want to focus on another trait without losing the existing recessive trait, by buying a bird that already has that existing recessive trait, you know for sure that you will not lose that recessive trait you are trying to keep. For example, modeling is recessive. If you have mottled hens and buy a mottled rooster, or vice versa, all of the offspring will definitely be mottled, so you don't have to worry about losing the mottling. So, if you want a lavender chick with a single comb and dark eyes, even though all these traits are recessive, you can make your Frankenstein bird most definitely have these traits by breeding a rooster and a hen who have all these exact traits. There will be no guesswork to what kind of bird you will get. On the other hand, let's say you want a bird with a rose comb. Now remember, a rose comb is dominant. Let's say you go ahead and purchase a hen and a rooster that both have a rose comb. You breed these birds together, yet somehow you get some offspring with a single comb and some offspring with a rose comb. Well, what just happened? If this is the case, that means that both of the parents were carrying a recessive single comb gene. Because rose combs are dominant, both birds appear to have a rose comb. Yet, without breeding those two birds together to test it, you have no idea whether these birds each have two copies of the dominant rose comb gene or one copy of the rose comb gene and one copy of the single comb gene. When you are working for a trait that is dominant, always test breed to a bird that you know is heterozygous or carries a dominant and recessive trait to find out whether or not your new bird is homozygous or heterozygous for that trait. And always remember when test breeding to hatch out as many chicks as you can for the most accurate results. Now, don't get confused like I was when I first got into genetics and thought that some genes were dominant over all other genes and some of genes were always recessive to all of those dominant genes, and I just didn't know what happened when two dominant genes were together. For example, black is always dominant to lavender, but dominant white is always dominant over black. It's like a hierarchy. When talking about dominant and recessive genes, there will always be one dominant trait, never two different ones. Well, sort of, which brings us into our next two terms in the next video, incomplete dominance and codominance.
I want to watch that. Let's see. How do I stop the video?
They said nothing could fix it, but
All right. How did you all like that video? That's a lot to throw at you at one time. Mrs. Prudence likes the fact that she said to hatch out as many chicks as you can. Probably a lot of you would like that too. That's a lot of vocab, and it's a very complicated. There's a lot of high school age biology students that probably wouldn't understand this stuff. And you throw in the whole thing, we haven't gotten to that part yet about well, we'll get to it, but are you all with me? Have I lost you all yet? I know it's complicated. But
Not
hopefully
yet.
what's that? I haven't lost you yet? Okay.
Not yet.
All right. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Share. Where did I put that? Here we go. All right, can everybody see this? All right, so what do genes do? Genes, and then the genotype made up of all these genes. It tells a living thing how to build, how to grow, how to function, and these genes are located inside the chromosomes inside cells. And in poultry, and in just like most animals and a lot of plants, one set of genes comes from the mother or the hen, and one set comes from the father or the rooster. Avian genetics. It's a little different than mammalian genetics, and it's every animal is a little bit different. Chickens, for instance, have 39 pairs of chromosomes. So they get 39 chromosomes from the hen and 39 chromosomes from the rooster. So they have 78 total chromosomes. So 39 comes from the hen, 39 comes from the rooster. Birds are different than mammals. We know that. One way in which birds are different from mammals, they have feathers instead of hair. They don't give milk. They lay eggs. They don't have live offspring. Those are just some ways that birds are different from animals. Here's another way. In genetics, mammals we consider XX being the genetic code for a female and XY the genetic code for males. And then the father in mammals determines the gender of the offspring. They get the X or Y chromosome from the male, and they only get X from the mother. Birds are different. The female or the hen determines the gender of the offspring, and it's called Z instead of X. Instead of X and Y, like in mammals, it's Z and W. So birds are ZZ for male and ZW for female, and it's the hen that decides the gender of the offspring. So that's a little different. So now all we could talk that this could literally be a graduate course. You could literally get a PhD in avian genetics and poultry genetics. Today, we're not going to get a PhD. All we're going to do today is talk about 3 traits that I think probably interests you the most for our discussion today. And that's egg color, because I know you all, I think that's what started this whole thing was egg color when somebody brought that up last time. Comb type, and then plumage color, feather color. Yes, Lily, you got a question?
You sure we can't get a PhD today? It would save me a lot of time.
It'd save you a lot of time to get a PhD today? Yeah.
I said it would save me a lot of time.
Yeah, it sure would. A lot of late nights in the library too.
And money.
Yeah, and money. Well, I'll do my best to get you off to a good start, Lily, but I can't get you one today. So you want to learn how egg colors determined in chickens? Would that be fun for you guys? And how different combs are determined in chickens and different colored feathers? Does that sound good? Okay. That's all we're going to talk about then in the rest of the day. All right, let's talk about the genetics of egg shell color. So we know that they get a gene from the mother and a gene from the father. So they get a gene from the hen and a gene from the rooster. And sometimes one is dominant over another, and then they interact. And then you have a phenotype, what color egg that chicken actually lays. All right. So there are 2 base colors for chicken eggs, white and blue. Did you know this? Not brown. Notice I didn't say brown. White and blue. So those are the genetics for color. But then there's this other thing, this other notion known as tint. Tint is a separate set of genetic code. There's a genetic code for shell color, and then there's a genetic code for tint that would cover that shell. Are you with me still? Okay, so there's only 2 possible colors for the actual eggshell itself, white and blue. There's white eggs and blue eggs. But there's a separate genetic code that is called tint that influences that. And the tint can be deposited in various levels depending on if it's heterozygous or homozygous. It's not an all or nothing like some genes. It can be layered based on how many of each one of those tint genes is present. So if we have tint present on a white-shelled egg, guess what that gives us? It's written right here so you all can see. What does that give us? If I have a tint gene influencing a white-shelled egg, what does that give us? What's a very common color of egg that you probably get from your chickens? Most of your chickens, I would guess. And it's written right here.
They're putting it in the chat, brown.
Oh, okay, brown, yeah. So if you have a tint gene influencing a brown-shelled egg or influencing a white-shelled egg, it gives you a brown egg. If you have tint on a blue-shelled egg, what does that give you? And some of you I know have these kinds of chickens. They give you what color egg? It's probably in chat. Green or olive, that's absolutely right. And the amount of tinting genes present influences how dark brown or how dark olive colored it is. Because some green eggs are kind of light green, and then some are real dark, like the olive colored eggs. And so let's look at some of this. So 2 basic colors, white or blue. Those colors are, and if you take a brown egg and scratch the surface, you'll see that it's white underneath. Have you ever tried that? And if you do a green egg and look underneath, it'll be blue. Like if you scratch the surface, try it. Those of you who have green eggs or brown eggs, very lightly, maybe after you've cracked the egg open, scratch the very surface and see if you don't see a little bit of white under that brown shell, or if you see a little bit of blue under the green shell. Try it. All right, now let's get down to some kind of graphics. All right, so the lady in the video talked about homozygous and heterozygous. Remember that? I talked about it too, one of our early like vocab slides, and of course I went by it. Let's see. Maybe I want to make this littler. So a homozygous blue laying hen, that means she got a blue egg. Oh, let's see, Miss Prudence. Let me stop sharing so Miss Prudence can share her. If she scratches enough under that brown egg, she's going to see some white. And there you
Okay,
go.
so I'm going to talk simply so that the recording can capture my video camera. But yes, this was what I was just thinking. I was like, I think I got one this morning that was scratched. So there's a scratch on, this is my black French Marin egg.
And those lay very dark eggs.
Yes.
But under all that dark, if you go down a little bit deeper, you'd see it even get lighter and lighter until it's white. Because the tint affects the outside of the egg. But you can see where the scratch is, how light it is under there.
Yes, so there is the scratch, and I'm just simply talking so that the camera will take to me so that the recording captures this picture of this egg. All right,
And
I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Yeah, okay. Ruby asked about pink eggs. Some eggs have a pink hue. That's also a tint thing, and that's just a very light tint. Very, very light tint. All right, so let's get back to the PowerPoint. All right, where I'm back to that. Okay. So we have a bird here that's a homozygous. That means she's got one blue egg gene from her daddy, the rooster, and one blue egg gene from her mama, the hen. So she is homozygous. She has two blue egg genes. A white hen, a white egg laying hen, like a white leghorn. This is actually a recessive trait. So she's going to have she's homozygous also with two recessive traits. And she has a white gene from her mom and a white gene from her dad, a white egg gene from her dad. A heterozygous blue egg layer, we talked about dominant and recessive genes. Well, in this instance, blue eggs is dominant over white eggs. Even though it's more rare, it's still dominant. And a heterozygous blue egg layer, which would probably lay a little bit of a paler blue egg, because there's some other genes that play here too. But for our simple discussion, this heterozygous blue egg layer is going to have let's pretend this is the dad and this is the mom. This white gene is going to come from over here, and the blue gene would come from over here from the dad. And then it'll still lay a blue egg because blue is dominant, but it might be just a little bit lighter blue. Does this make sense to everybody? So blue plus blue is going to equal blue. Blue plus white is going to equal blue. White plus white equals white. I'm talking about a rooster and a hen. A rooster, blue egg rooster with a blue egg hen is going to always give you blue egg offspring.
Okay, Dr. Chris, you said a blue egg rooster.
Well, that carries the gene for a blue egg. A rooster that carries a gene for a blue egg.
So, like for instance, an Americana rooster or a cream leg bar rooster, because roosters
Correct.
don't lay eggs.
If they carry that gene in a homozygous state, now they could be a heterozygous, and we won't know what kind of, until we breed them, we won't know. Because like she said in the video, you don't now. This is a real PhD stuff. Unless we did genomics study, which we're not going to do because we're in 4-H, we're not in a lab somewhere. But now they're doing. Remember, she said you have to breed it and find out what kind of genes it's actually carrying. Now we don't have to do that if we have the right equipment because we can do a genomic study on the bird and we can target breed, and that's how we are now breeding a lot of dairy cattle and a lot of beef cattle and some other species because we don't want to have to breed and find out. We want to know before we breed, and we look at the actual genetic makeup of the animal at the cellular level, which is way beyond this 4-H club, but it's out there. All right, does everybody understand the basics of the white versus the blue egg? Blue is dominant. A white egg laying hen is going to have two white egg laying genes. A blue could either be homozygous blue or heterozygous blue. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Now let's talk about tint. So we got two colors, white and blue. Then we have this notion of tint. Tint is a tint overlay. It's controlled by about 13 that we know of, known genes that code for tint. Tint is a kind of a natural colorant in the hen's body applied over the shell, and it's always dominant. Tint is dominant. And tint is always passed on, even if very lightly, because if it's in a heterozygous state, it can be passed on lightly. And remember, there's 13 genes, so it could be heterozygous at a lot of these different alleles. I know this is complicated, but just please bear with me. Let me show you another thing. So a cream layer, remember there's 13 different things. So she might have a little bit of tint from a lot of these different things, but she just lays a very light egg. Whereas Miss Prudence's bird that she showed us, it's getting a lot of probably homozygous tint. It's got a lot of tint on a lot of these. And that's why some chocolate eggs are a little more chocolatey than others, because there's 13 different that we know of alleles that influence this tint. Tint is more complicated than just simple egg color. Egg color is white or blue, but then you will add on these 13 other genes that influence the tint. And that's where you get all these rainbow of eggs that somebody mentioned. Pink, which these pink ones are kind of similar to this. It's just you can get a whole rainbow of eggs from 2 color genes and then 13 tint genes. So does this make sense? That's why some brown eggs are browner than other brown eggs. It's because of the level of tint based on that chicken's genetic code. Isn't that fascinating? But here's the thing. Here's another cool thing I will say. This has nothing to do with the genes. If I take a very dark brown egg and a white egg and a blue egg and a green egg, and I crack them into a bowl, would I be able to tell which one came from which shell? No, because they're all the same inside. And that's a good moral for us in 4-H, because some of us look a little bit different on the outside than others, but inside we still are the same kind of people. We all like similar things, and we all, we like, we have food that we like, and we all have, in other words, don't judge a book by its cover, and just be nice to people regardless of what they look like on the outside. It doesn't matter what color egg you lay. Once you crack it open, it's all the same inside. And that goes for people and chickens. So, all right. So tint over a blue egg. So tint over a white egg gives you different colors of brown eggs. Tint over a blue egg gives you what we call these rainbow layers. It can give you a green egg layer, and a real dark tint on a green egg or on a blue egg is going to give you what we call the olive eggers, real dark green. And then some of your pinks and some of your stuff's going to come from some of this too. So tint genes are dominant. So you can have all different kinds based on, you look at all these different colors eggs you can get. So tint genes can be fun. That's where the fun comes in, is the different levels of tinting. And some people have really gotten into these dark chocolate eggs. So those, and I'm not talking about like a Cadbury egg, I'm talking about a real dark brown chicken egg. Those have a lot of those genes in for tint, probably in a homozygous state. Okay, and remember, tint's dominant, and they pass that on. That's why But remember, they are dominant. So sometimes you might get sad and get one that lays a little bit lighter egg. And you're like, well, how come this one's not laying such a dark egg? Well, one of the parents was heterozygous for that tint gene, that particular. So does that make sense? Okay. All right. Any questions on eggs? So just to review, there's two main colors, white and blue. And then on top of that, we lay all these various genes for tinting, 13 of them that we know of. And it gives us a rainbow of eggs. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because eggs still taste like eggs when you crack them into an omelet or fry them and mash them up with grits or however you eat your eggs. It doesn't matter what the shell looks like because you're going to throw that away anyway or compost it or whatever you do with your shells. So, any questions on egg color, egg shell color? But it's fun, isn't it? Isn't that kind of fun? We're getting into some serious. Now, look, some of you guys that need to do a science project or need to do a 4-H demonstration for County Events Day, this would be some pretty good stuff to. I mean, I bet you'd be pretty good on some of the stuff for either a science experiment or science fair or County Events Day. Keep this stuff in the back of your brain, okay? I know you guys are smart. Whew, I need to take a breath after all that. Are we ready to talk about comb? All right. Single comb is the most common comb, but it's also recessive. Just like white eggs are probably the most dominant, I guess, maybe. I know worldwide they probably are because white leghorn hens are the kind of the gold standard for layers. But it's easy to breed for that because we know they're recessive. So you breed a white egg layer to a white egg layer, you know you're going to get a white egg layer. Same thing with a single comb. You breed a single comb rooster to a single comb hen, all the babies are going to have single combs. So comb genetics, it's a little more complicated. Well, it's a lot more complicated than egg shell color. It's primarily determined by two main genes, but they're located in different chromosomes. In addition to that, there's a duplex gene and a combless gene that can suppress, in other words, it influences these other genes. If you have a rose comb and a recessive single comb on chromosome 7, you get a rose comb. It's different chromosomes. So P comb is a different chromosome than rose comb. So this on chromosome 1, if that's where the influence is coming from, it's P comb. And then there's walnut comb, rose comb, P comb, single comb. So there's these two things. Rose comb and P comb are the two main chromosomes. A rose comb is a heterozygous of the rose comb thing. Or, yeah, a walnut comb would be the RR. Or no, pardon me, two dominants, R and P. Dominant for rose and dominant for P. That gives you a walnut comb. I'm confusing myself now. Rose comb has a dominant for rose and a recessive for the P comb. A P comb has a recessive for rose, but a dominant for P. And then a single comb has recessive for rose and also a recessive for P comb. And if you don't know what the combs look like, it is confusing. So here's some different combs. And these are all, remember, then you have these other influences that make things like a buttercup comb, which are very fancy looking, and the cushion comb. But here's what a rose comb kind of looks like. Here's what a single comb looks like. Strawberry comb, pea comb, a V comb, look at this thing, and then a walnut comb. That's very confusing, isn't it? So let's go back and review. There are two main genes, one on chromosome 7 and one on chromosome 1, that affect the comb. The one chromosome is called the rose comb gene, and it's either dominant or recessive. and the other is the pecomb gene on chromosome 1. It's either dominant or recessive. And these two genetic markers on these two different chromosomes, depending on which one's dominant and which one's recessive, gives you these four combs: walnut, rose, pea, or single. And single is both are recessive rose and recessive pea. Maybe I explained it a little bit better that time. Well, if you see a capital letter in a genetic kind of makeup, that means it's dominant. And the lowercase letter kind of tells you it's recessive. So single comb, which is also probably the most common, which is odd because it's the recessive trait for both of these. And then when you get these other alleles, this D and BD influence, and you get this crazy stuff like the buttercup and the V. But people breed for this stuff. I mean, they want these funny looking chickens. Whew. Any questions on comb? Comb is a little more complicated. I don't expect for you all to pick it up tonight, but I just wanted to expose it to you. Plumage color. Eggshell color was the easiest genetics we're going to do tonight. Comb gets a little more complicated. Plumage color, I'm not even going to try. I'm going to let you watch this video. I found a video that I think this lady, now she's a little bit hard to understand. I think she's from South Africa. She's a scientist from I think she's a scientist. Maybe she's a teacher. She's somebody from South Africa who I think does a better job of me than explaining. Because plumage, there's so much genetic stuff going on. There's a lot of genes working together. So we're going to try, I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to watch one more video. Sorry for all the videos tonight. Hopefully I don't get any more crazy ads. Let me see. Where did that go? All right. How are you all doing? Do you all have any questions for me up to this point? Tax. Any questions for me? Are you have I made your brain explode? That's worse than school, isn't it?
Not
I
yet.
think I think they're getting it. So when you think about genetics, I just wanted to share um, when my son was born, I have blue eyes with, I guess mine are called hazel. My husband says they're blue, green, brown. And then my son was born with blue eyes. And when we went to his 1 week appointment, my husband asked, how long is it going to take his eyes to turn brown? Because he thought he should have brown eyes. But he looks just like my husband, except his eyes are blue. So when you think about your eye color, you could look at your parents and see. I can see Ruby, I think you have blue eyes because you're pretty close to the camera. So you could look at your parents and see what color eyes you have. There's different things that are you're inheriting, just like your birds are going to inherit. Like I have a dent in my chin I got from my dad. He had that. My mom doesn't have that, but I have that from my dad. So just different things that you can inherit from your parents. And just like your hens and your roosters are going to inherit different things from their parents.
Yeah, both my parents have blue eyes, and then my dad used to have blonde hair, and my mom does have blonde hair.
Oh, okay. And so you
Yeah, I
have
used to
blonde hair,
have
blue
blonde
eyes.
hair too.
I used to
It's
have brown
turning
hair. I still have a
Arctic.
little bit, but mine's
It's
getting
turning
skin
Arctic
color.
blonde now.
Mine's turning loose. Well, oh, Ruby asked about pink. That is a light tint on a white egg, but there's another gene effect there, the bloom. You know what the bloom is on an egg, right? Bloom is a little cuticle like material that covers an egg that protects it. It's got a very heavy bloom deposit. So it gives it a pinkish color, like a blush color. So there's a whole other genetic code for the amount of bloom. So genetics is fascinating. It was one of my favorite courses
Yeah, okay, thank
on
you.
the college. Yeah. Oh, I was going to show you a video. Let me find that video. I found it. Now I got to share it. All right, here it is. This lady now, you got to pay attention to her. Oh, Lily, did you have a question before we watch the video?
Is there any way possible to make a purple egg by any chance? I've just
I
never
don't,
seen it before. So,
not that I'm aware of in chickens.
man.
Some birds lay different colored eggs. Sometimes turkeys, their eggs are speckled and it kind of looks purple if they have enough speckles, they can look a little purpley from far off, like a
Mhm.
lavender. But it's mostly just speckles from far
All
off.
right.
I don't think so, but maybe you'll figure that out, Lily. Maybe you'll
All
be the
right.
one that cracks that genetic code.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So this lady I think she says she's from South Africa because she mentions in the video being from there. This is a very, very plumage color in chickens is a lot of genes. It's not just one gene or two genes or 13 genes like the tint. It's a lot of genes. But she does a good job of breaking it down. And we're not all going to get this, tonight, but I just wanted to show you this video. So let me see. Can you all see this? Yep. Okay. All right. Now I can't wait. Oh, because I'm muted. You gotta kind of listen close to her.
This video attempts to explain in simple terms how genetics will influence the colors and patterns found on chicken feathers. The chicken's entire genome was sequenced in 2004. This is when it was discovered that they have between 20,000 and 23,000 genes and 1 billion DNA base pairs. The color of plumage in birds is an important feature, often determined.
So she said they have 1 billion genes, basically, base pairs. That's when they mapped it all.
Descent to particular species or breed.
I'm on a video that
Serves
called
as a
that,
key
okay?
factor in the interaction of birds with each other due to their well-developed visual perception of the surrounding world. Chickens have 39 pairs of chromosomes, or 78 chromosomes in total. These chromosomes house the genetic makeup of a chicken, and the composition of genes on these chromosomes determines everything from the chicken's sex, size, coloration, and more. A gene is a section on a rod-like chromosome that codes for a specific characteristic through the production of a specific protein. There can be variations in these genes, and these variations are known as alleles. An organism will always have two alleles, one from the father and one from the mother. If the genes are identical, they are homozygous. If they are different to one another, they are heterozygous. And if there is only one copy of the gene, it is hemizygous. In humans, the X and Y chromosomes determine biological sex, but in birds, including chickens, it's the Z and W chromosomes that determines the sex. A chick born with ZZ chromosomes will be male. ZW chromosomes will be female. All chickens will have Z chromosomes, but only female chickens will have W chromosomes. Dominant genes will always be visible in the organism, while recessive genes can sometimes be hidden and becomes visible only when there is two copies of the recessive gene. Genetics is the study of the characteristics of organisms and how they are inherited from one generation to the next. We study these genes and how they interact to determine the possible combinations of the variations for the next generation. We use pedigree diagrams to predict the characteristics of the offspring through statistical crossings, and selective breeding takes place if the statistical crossing is favorable. Dirt, dirt, dirt. I love dirt.
Sorry, we got to add.
Of poultry breeds comes from the original jungle fowl. It's a type of coloring that is known as the wild type coloring. This is nature's way of distributing pigment to make the males more attractive to females and then to camouflage the females while they are incubating their eggs. The colorization is based on two forms of pigmentation, black and red. The pigment responsible for black base colors is eomelanins. When eomelanins gets diluted, they can produce grays, or they can even be a brownish to blackish color. The dominant white color, written as a capital I, it is a incomplete dominant allele which reduces the eomelanin pigment. Along with it, there are two other alleles. The one is dun-colored, written as capital I with a capital D in superscript, and the second is smoky, written as capital I with a capital S as superscript. So a black bird will have the genes for black from eomelanin. Ground color is the main color of the body plumage, and it is the base color. The pigments responsible for the red base color is pheomelanins, and when they get diluted, they appear as reds, oranges, and yellows. Silver, wild-type gold, and sex-linked imperfect albinism forms a series of alleles at the S locus on a chicken chromosome Z. The sex-linked silver factor inhibits red color pigmentation. It is incompletely dominant to wild type, and its phenotypic expression is highly influenced by modifying genes. In order to obtain a buff color, a chicken must have, number one, genes that add a red pigment to the chicken plumage. Number two, it must carry a gene for diluting the red pigment to a buff color. And lastly, the chicken must have a restrictor gene that removes the black pigment from the body of the bird. One example of getting buff color is when there is a recessive wheaten gene, sex-linked gold, which adds red, champagne blonde genes, which dilutes the red, mahogany genes that darkens the red and removes the black, it's a restrictor, a Colombian gene pair that removes the black, it's also a restrictor, then a dilute gene that dilutes the red to the buff color. Primary patterns are color patterns that involve the entire body of the chicken. An example is the silver Colombian pattern. The silver Colombian is a white chicken with some black in the neck, wing, and tail areas. Because the pattern does not manifest on individual feathers, it is referred to as a primary pattern. The E locus is important to learn with poultry genetics. The common E locus alleles are extended black birchen, dominant wheaten, the wild type, partridge, speckled, buttercup, recessive wheaten, and Queen Sylvia. They are able to increase the amount of melanin and claim a piece of the ground area color. Solid black is extended black written as two capital E's. These genes control how much black patterning a bird has and the areas that patterning can express. Double capital E produces the most black, whereas wheaten produces the least amount. In birchen chickens, the main body and tail of the bird are solid black. The head, hackles on males and females, and the saddle on males have silvery white feathers with a narrow black stripe through the middle of each feather. The breast feathers are black with a narrow trim of silver. In partridge hens, the hackle feathers are black in the center with a thin border of reddish bay. The overall body color is the same reddish bay with beautiful black pencilings. Each feather will have at least 3 black pencilings. The main tail is black except for the top 2 feathers, which follow the same pattern as the body. Roosters have black body feathers and a black tail with red hackles, back, shoulders, and parts of the wings. The wild type produces a typical black-breasted red male with a salmon-breasted female. Wheat in color is the color of yellow wheat. Hens are majority wheat colored with dark necks and tails, while roosters have more variety in their coloring but are typically more orange than the black-breasted red. While the primary pattern refers to the distribution of colored feathers in different parts of a bird's body, the secondary pattern refers to the distribution of color on individual feathers. The pattern gene is a restricted gene, and it restricts the expression of the eumelanin into concentric penciled lines. It is a dominant gene. There are many different chicken feather patterns that show up when birds have been mixed, but there are a few that is deemed the standard. Feather patterns can not only indicate the breed of a bird, but it is sometimes used to tell you the bird's gender. Melanotic genes provides an all-black chicken. The Colombian pattern is a white with black pattern. Roosters have a white head, back, and thighs. The hackles are green, black laced with white lacing. The main tail and the sickles are solid black. Hens have white bodies with black necks laced in white and some black tail feathers. Solid colored feathers are most common in backyard chickens. Birds with solid feathers can be a variety of colors, but each feather is one solid color. With penciling, there is distinct thin lines that follow the contour of the feather. Each feather usually has multiple pencilings. They are especially beautiful and intricate in design. Double-laced has 2 lacings of black. First, there is the outer black lacing around the edge of the feather, plus there is an inner or second lacing pattern. In double lacing, we start with a basic pattern gene and add a melanotic component to it. The melanotic gene is an intensifier gene. It intensifies the expression of eumelanin and it moves it to the edges and wider areas in the central part of the feather. It is a dominant gene and causes the double lacing pattern in feathers. For single lacing, start with a pattern gene, add the melanotic, and then a Colombian gene. The Colombian gene acts as a restrictor gene. In combination with the pattern gene and the melanotic gene, it leads to a single laced pattern, pushing the black coloring to the edges and expanding the ground color on the center of the feather. For color inhibition, we find barring feathers and mottled feathers. The barring gene is dominant, while the lack of barring gene is recessive, and the lack of mottled gene is dominant, while the mottling gene is recessive. In sex-linked dilution, homozygotes are white, and heterozygote males and hemizygote females have a light blue barred plumage. The barring dilution gene is dominant. The barring gene is also dominant, and the lack of barring gene is a recessive gene. Barring is feathers with horizontal stripes or bars of 2 colors. Bars can be of equal thickness, or one color may be thicker than the other. Barred breeds are usually sex-linked, meaning male chicks and female chicks look distinctly different at hatching. For a spangling, Start with a pattern gene, add the melanotic, and then add a dark brown gene. With mottled feathers, some feathers, but not all, have white tips on the ends. The white is actually a loss of pigment and gives the bird a distinct spotted look. The FOSS Education videos aims to make content colorful and clear to understand. The videos are based on the CAPS syllabus in South Africa, with some extensions and expansions to other syllabi around the world. Connect with us at teachersbyteachers.com/store.
Easy, right? Everybody's got that. You'll never forget it again, right? No, but it's complicated. It's very complicated. Genetics is complicated. It takes a lot of genes to tell us who we are, for that phenotype of what we look like on the outside to be apparent to everybody else and what we are on the inside too. And so I don't expect everybody certainly to get all this, but I wanted to just expose it to you because somebody, you can blame this lesson this month on whoever it was last month that asked about egg color. I don't remember who it was, but somebody last month, remember we got to talking about genetics and they're like, man, I wish I could understand how you could decide egg color in chickens. Remember that conversation last month? And then I said, well, guess what? Next month we're going to learn genetics. And that's what we did tonight. So I hope I didn't bore you. Um, but I hope you learned. Did you all learn anything?
We got thumbs ups.
Oh, good. If this is something that interests you, we've been studying genetics now for, well, since Mendel. When was Mendel? In the 1800s, I guess. Uh, we're just now cracking the genetic code on chickens. And what you say, they finally mapped the chicken genetic code in 2004. That's not that long ago. That's this, that's 20 years ago. And they're just scratching the surface. So who was it that wanted to breed purple-egged chickens? Was it Lily, or somebody said they wanted to do purple egg? Guess what, Lily? Maybe you will. If you really like this and want to study genetics, and in particular poultry genetics, you might be able to targetly produce a chicken that could lay purple eggs. Who knows? Who's to say
I
you
might,
couldn't?
but I feel like I'll forget the genetic code as soon as I did it. Or
Well,
lose like whatever paper I wrote it down on.
no, because you
I
would
feel
have
like
your data kept in a secure way as a researcher. You would have probably a lab assistant to help you with that sort of thing. I mean, it wouldn't just be you in some castle like you see on a movie. You would have lab protocols and stuff. I mean, he- yeah, he would definitely be taught how to handle that sort of thing. So, yeah, if that's something you want to do, make your life's goal to develop a purple egg, I say go for it. Because who am I to tell you that you can't do it? Because we don't know
yeah.
yet. We're just learning all this stuff. Ruby,
Yeah.
what's your puppy's name? We gotta look at Ruby's puppy.
This is my dog, Opal.
Opal, she looks sweet.
Yeah, she's a little skipperkie from Belgium.
Oh, wow.
Their name translates to little captain.
Little Captain?
Yeah.
She
And then I
likes that.
show
When you said that, she looked at you. Say Little Captain again.
little captain. It doesn't really work all the time, but and then I
Uh-huh.
show her in 4-H.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. That's
I
a
showed
whole
her the
other
snake hair.
genetic thing, dog genetics, ear length and ear set and coat length and coat color and
Yeah.
dew claws, this, that, and the other. So much genetics. Genetics is fun.
Yeah.
Probably I had a dog named Belle. She was a German short-haired pointer. I have her son and two of her grandchildren, but she was a good dog, Belle. Well, any questions or comments on genetics? I would love to go to 4-H University in July and have one of you guys up there talking about egg color and chickens as your 4-H demonstration, because I usually judge that room. And so I would love to, that'd make me very happy, but we'll see what y'all do. Any comments, questions, jokes, complaints? All right. Well, I'm I've loved it. This doesn't happen very often in this club, but I've left you speechless because usually you all are asking me 1,000 questions. So I've literally left you speechless. Either it was too complicated, y'all are still thinking, or I just totally bored you to death. So, oh, a mini Aussie. That's cool. Those are sweet dogs too. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you all have a good. How much school is left? About a month? Month and a half, something like that. Well, I hope y'all have a good finish to the school year.